Welcome to the first City Commission meeting of 2025. We'll have an invocation offered by Commissioner Waddington, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
First, I'd like to take a moment of silence for Chuck Lococo. He's one of our past volunteers of the year a few years back, and he passed a few days ago, so if we can take just a quick moment of silence for him. Thank you. God our Father, as we gather for the meeting this evening, give us the guidance and wisdom to make the proper decisions. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Myers, you call the roll.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Coons?
Here.
Mr. Crable?
Here.
Ms. Spargo?
Here.
Mr. Waddington?
Here.
Mr. Brady?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Bajali?
May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Pajali?
So moved. Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved and Mr. Pajali is excused. Commissioners, you have before you the minutes of our meeting of December the 18th. I know that seems like a long time ago because it was. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I
Waddington.
move that we accept the minutes of December 18th meeting as presented.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. I am going to rearrange our agenda this evening, allowing for public comment on any item that pertains to city business in order to accommodate anyone who has joined us this evening with the intention of speaking to this commission. If you marched a long distance or if you've not marched at all, we respect your right to be heard, and we're going to do just that. On this occasion, I think it's disrespectful to ask anyone to sit through a 2-hour meeting just to exercise your First Amendment. I'll remind you that this is not a question and answer session, nor is it a debate session. This is an opportunity for the public to voice their opinion. So any residents with comments regarding tonight's, any resident with comments of any issue that pertains to city business, I'd ask you to step to the podium, give us your name and address, and if you'd limit your comments to 5 minutes, we would all appreciate that.
Good afternoon. Evening. My name is Barbara Clark, and I'm your newly elected president for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People here in Sandusky. And we have a concern, and I would like to read a statement on behalf of the Sandusky unit of the NAACP. As I said, I will read our mission. And our mission is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equity and rights of all persons, to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. Okay. I am coming with concerns of many citizens, and in particular, concerns of the Black citizens of Sandusky, many of whom are devastated by what they saw on the video or Facebook posts online in the incident that took place between the Sandusky police and Mr. Scotty B. Scott on December the 19th, 2024. I did not get a chance to see the incident online, but I did get a chance to read a couple of the articles that was in the paper, and that left me with concerns, okay? And I understand that the video was seen by several people, and there was concerns there. So to move on, as a leader in this community, I was asked to come here on behalf of our organization and the community. The Sandusky unit and its members will be waiting for a thorough review and investigation by the Sandusky Police Chief, Chief Jared Oliver, I just met, to determine what steps will be taken to address of these concerns. We would also like to know whether any of the officers whom actions are under review are likely to be disciplined by either a formal or written reprimand or some form of disciplinary action. The Sandusky unit of the NAACP also would like to the Sandusky unit also would like to inform information released regarding the past incident of the behavior, the judgments, or the actions taken against any officer seen on the video whose actions are under review. Here are specific actions used by the police in the video that are questionable for us. 1, why did the officer place his taser on the chest of Mr. Scott and threaten to tase him when he already was handcuffed and not a threat to anyone? That was one of the questions that was asked. 2, why did another officer show up on the scene shouting profanity at Mr. Scott? And when he tried to get closer to the suspect, officers had to restrain him. Again, Mr. Scott already had been apprehended, handcuffed, and subdued to the point that no other further action was required of any of the officers on the scene. Many citizens have focused attention on the video of the officers placing his foot momentarily on Mr. Scott's neck and upper back area of his body. We would like to know whether this behavior violates police policies or is there a practice. Many citizens have complained about the unprofessional attitude of one officer in the video traveling to the scene of the incident while rap music was playing on his police cruiser. What are the standards of professionalism on the job, and especially when responding to an emergency? The Sandusky unit will be the Sandusky unit of the NAACP, will respect the process and allow the procedures to unfold in this matter. We are also hoping that this incident is resolved sufficiently and in a manner that will hold all officers accountable for their actions. Thank you for your time, and we hope to meet with you on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Clark, for your comments. Any additional, most of you in the entryway there probably did not hear my announcement, but I've moved up in our agenda the comments on any item that pertains to city business. Typically, that agenda item would be at the end of a long 2-hour meeting, and out of respect for you all being here, I've moved it up so we're having that agenda item moved up to respect your First Amendment rights. So I encourage anyone that wishes to speak on any item that pertains to city business, come to the podium and share with us your name and your address so we can reach back out to you if it's appropriate, and we'll get on with that. I did remind everyone that this process is not designed to be a debate, nor is it designed to be a question and answer session, but hearing your voices is very important to all of us.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have humor notes. Hello. Good evening. I would like to first start off by thanking everyone who came tonight to show support for the cause. I would like to thank our city commissioners for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Alexia Harris. I'm 20 years old. I'm a Sandusky High School graduate. I've lived in Sandusky all my life. Never did I ever think that I would have to speak out against police brutality in my city, ever. But I now realize I was naive to think that Sandusky was immune to the dangerous history of police culture we have in this country. The origin of modern-day policing started with slave patrols, which were designed to squash slave uprisings and return runaway slaves back to their owners. Excessive force was used as a tactic to control and force a desired behavior from slaves. At the end of the Civil War, slave patrols were replaced by militia-style groups that denied access to civil rights to freed slaves. Once the 14th Amendment of the Constitution was ratified, these militia-style groups upheld the Jim Crow laws until the 1900s when local departments began to be established. Some of these local departments enforced Jim Crow laws up until as late as the 1960s, while I add was not that long ago, and still was using some of the same tactics the slave patrols used in the 1800s. Now, I'm noting this history not to say that the Sandusky Police Department is a slave patrol, but to add important context as to why our policing systems stand the way they are today. We see a pattern of police getting away with heinous crimes and violence in the name of justice and enforcing law. When we think of police brutality, we think of the most extreme cases: Sonia Massey, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. These are just a few of many. But we also must remember that police brutality is a spectrum. As defined by Alexa P. Freeman, we use the term police brutality to encompass the broad spectrum of physical, psychological, and legal abuse of authority perpetuated by police. Now, knowing all this crucial information, I think it's safe to say that we can come to a fair conclusion about the situation that unfolded on December 19th. And I think I can confidently say for everyone in this room that we do not condone anything that the individual who arrested did. That individual's actions are indefensible, and so are the actions of the officer who committed police brutality against him. We learn at a young age the concept of two wrongs do not make a right. Why do we not hold our law enforcement to this same simple idea? How do we expect the community to fully trust the SPD when some of the officers cannot follow the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which prohibits excessive force? We need to hold these officers accountable, not only to make our community feel more safe, but to also protect the officers in our department who I believe have good intentions for our community. Our department is not perfect, which can be expected considering the dark history of American policing, but that does not mean we should not strive for perfection. I call to the City Commission to assist our community during this time in hopes to restore trust between the Sandusky Police Department and the citizens of Sandusky. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I would ask that you refrain from the applause. We're here on a serious issue, a serious matter. I'm not going to entertain applause between people speaking. I'm trying to be respectful of your time and of this commission's time. Yes, sir.
Hi. My name is Burnell Scott. I am Scotty Scott's father. I don't like this. I don't like the way it was handled. I don't like the way my son was dead. That's wrong. Something needs to be done. Please, open your eyes. It's not right. I'm not saying Scotty's perfect, but I'm saying our officers are professionals. Scotty's not. He has problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Danielle Murray. On December 19th, the Sandusky cops committed an act of police brutality against 28-year-old Scotty B. Scott. On December 19th, Scotty B. Scott was pulled over for speeding. When Scotty realized the cop was going to arrest him, Scotty fled his vehicle and started running from the cops. The cop catches/corners Scotty. Scotty puts his hands up. Then the cop tasers Scotty. In the next part of the body cam footage, we see 3 cops on top of/detaining Scotty, who is on the ground. Officer Ortman starts punching Scotty B. Scott in the back of the head multiple times. We then see one of the cops tasering Scotty's bare skin. Another part of the body camera footage, we see the detective taser Scotty B. Scott in the chest 4 times. At some point on December 19th, Scotty is put in jail. Scotty B. Scott is still in jail. This is assault committed by the Sandusky police. This is brutality committed by the Sandusky police. But the cops that violently assaulted Scotty B. Scott are not in jail. The person that was violently assaulted by the cops, Scotty B. Scott, is in jail. And what was Scotty B. Scott's crime? Why was Scotty punched in the back of the head multiple times, tasered in the chest, and verbally assaulted? Scotty B. Scott ran from the cops because Scotty Scott didn't want to get arrested. Scotty, in my opinion, risked his life to get avoided getting arrested by the cops. Did Scotty running from the cops give the cops the right to punch Scotty in the back of the head 4 times? No, it does not. But Scotty had 8 warrants out for his arrest. It still doesn't make it okay for the cop to punch Scotty 4 times in the head. And not only is this violence wrong, period, the Sandusky community is paying for this violence with our taxes. I do not even want my taxes to go towards the cops chasing Scotty B. Scott. We would all have been better off if the cop went back to his little cop car and did something that benefits the Sandusky. Do not dare say that you arresting Scotty B. Scott benefits me in any way, shape, or form. No, sorry is not sufficient. We, the city of Sandusky, deserve better, and Scotty deserves better. I demand on behalf of the city of Sandusky that every cop at that scene as Scotty B. Scott was assaulted be fired, investigated, and tried for assault or assisting assault. If you cannot see that video and be able to label that as anything but police brutality, and cannot do anything but condemn that police brutality, and you do not think that every cop in that room deserves to be tried for the act of violence committing in that room, I demand that you resign as a government worker, because I'm resigning my tax dollars to be paying for your state-sponsored violence committed by the Sandusky government. I highly suggest that Scotty Scott, on behalf of all of us, sue the city of Sandusky for police brutality. That is a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, and I hope that Scotty looks into the best civil rights attorney he can find. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Anyone else wishing to speak on items pertaining to city business?
Good evening, Tim Schwanger, 362 Sheffield Way. Just 2 items here on the agenda. Number 1, the first one is number 9, which is the purchase. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Schwanger, we're going to get to that section on agenda items. This is public participation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was.
It's okay. I took it out of order because I wanted these people to be heard.
Okay, I didn't know if anybody else was going to speak or not. So, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Nice if you could correct the record. It's horrible.
Hi, how's everybody doing tonight? Good evening, my name is Courtney Reyna. I'm a born Sandusky City resident, and I have remained here for the last 36 years. I'm not only a born resident, but I'm also a proud resident. I have a deep love, not only for the land, but also for the people. I've watched this city go from a plain Jane to an awe-striking wonder. The meticulous attention to detail does not go unnoticed, and I want to thank all those responsible for their hard work and dedication into making this city stand out among the rest. I'm here today to talk about a situation that struck me as off, and not only off, but out of character. Not only out of character, but quite honestly despicable and embarrassing. I've adopted a new concept in life, which is never highlight a problem without having a solution. I'm going to use another example. It's a sore topic, and I feel like it's vital and necessary to address it in light of this recent situation. This topic is intended to address the severity of conduct between officers and civilians. But if this hurts anybody, please forgive me now, as is not my intention. I'm also highlighting this issue because I will use it later in the problem solution area. Officer Andy Dunn was murdered here in Sandusky in 2011 at the hands of a civilian. This was not their first encounter with each other, but one of many. The problem? We have the same officers arresting the same people for many years. Consequently, patience on either side runs thin. The line of separation between where the level of respect of authority and taking things personally becomes thinner and blurred. The solution, I think when hostility is noticed between officers and particular civilians, preventative measures need to be taken place. Where the officers and the civilians are separated on a do not engage order in a set place to protect both the officers and the civilians. These men and women are risking their lives every day to protect our community. The least we can do is protect them too. I would like to take a moment of silence for Officer Andrew Dunn, a life taken too soon. My Lord and my God, today, thank you for this opportunity where we can speak freely with love and respect for one another. Father, use me as a voice for all your children, not just some. For your word says, blessed are the peacemakers, for those are the sons of God. Father, use this opportunity for your name to be glorified, and not my words, but your words fill this room today. And not my will, but your will be done, in Jesus' name. I understand that my solution requires money. I understand there is a lack thereof when it comes to money to fund our police department. Sandusky is ranked the 4th lowest in all of Ohio when it comes to annual pay for officers, and is also understaffed. As much attention to detail is taken to our beautiful city, this amount of care needs to also be taken for our police force as well. I have another solution. Mr. Scott has had years with run-ins with the police department, starting at the age of 11 years old. I've heard stories that he is known for being a runner and has in the past been tased upon arrival due to this knowing. Mr. Scott is also diagnosed with manic bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Both mental health diseases causes them to run when scared due to heightened senses of fear and paranoia. The solution that we have officers paired with mental health crisis specialists, or we, the city, pay for our officers to have dual education in this matter. In these scenarios where officers are being deployed at high-risk situations, to answer these calls takes courage and bravery, but we, the people, are seeing here is hostility, immaturity, and unprofessionalism. Understanding that we are all human and have instincts, I believe that both sides' mental health needs need to be taken under consideration and at top priority. As this situation here is unacceptable and the police involved should be held at a higher standard. My suggestions are to specialize training, especially when it comes to de-escalation. This will present a less hostile and more supportive environment. Allow more understanding and communication for mental health needs and issues. Allow more options for immediate care and support. A friendly face instead of intimidation. Working alongside families, friends, and EMTs during mental health crisis situations. In regards to mental health episodes, the City of Sandusky only has police to take these calls. People who are experiencing a mental health episode are already living in a state of fright. And fright, when met with hostility, will engage the person's fight or flight response. In these cases, flight or fight can result in a life or death situation for both parties. Awareness, education, and partnership between the community and our city can prevent these types of situations from reoccurring. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Additional comments on any item that pertains to city business?
Good afternoon. Terry Burton, 2212 Milan Road. I was here 2 meetings ago, I think, speaking about the police department. That specific issue, I have not had a chance to speak with Chief Oliver with my continuing questions, so it would not be right to bring anything of that nature up here. But I saw the video, and I want to start off by saying police have a very difficult job. You don't know what's going to happen. You come out of your car, you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know if this person has a mental illness and they're going to harm you. You don't know what's happening. Much like, I mean, you guys all know who I am, what I've done. It's the same as being in a war zone. You may be facing a terrorist who killed your friends. He may have shot at you, but the moment that he puts his weapon down, that encounter is over. What I saw in this video, Mr. Scott was no longer a threat, but the officers were unable to come off their adrenaline. This is a common thing that happens. You're in a high risk or high stakes environment, you have an adrenaline dump, it's over. As quick as it started, it's over. You're still hyped up for that fight. The officer should have disengaged until he could get rid of his adrenaline. He had no excuse to do what he did. If a water line in the city was broken, for example, and we were at risk of an E. coli outbreak, the city would not wait until someone got sick or wait until somebody died. They would find the source of the leak, they would fix it, and they would keep us safe. Our police department, although they're made up of individuals, are no different than the city streets department, the fire department, or the gardening department. They have a job, and that's to keep us safe. Our rights don't. When we mention the individual may have been mentally ill, or there may have been a physical altercation that took place, just like the First Amendment was meant to give us speech on unpopular topics, the police have to be trained to deal with the lowest tier of individuals. And I'm not speaking in a class or a race issue, the lowest tier of their mental acuity at that time. They may not be understanding something that you're trying to tell them. You can't go into every encounter thinking this is a rational individual, getting yourself into a situation where you utilize force and not being able to stop. When I train protection dogs, I will throw a dog out who can't release his bite on command. If your officers are unable to stop their encounter, bring their adrenaline down, and not abuse our citizens, then it's not the right job for that officer. He needs a different job. I can't have an issue with someone outside, we're having an argument, and I decide, he says, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to fight you, it's over. And I punch him in the nose. I'm going to jail. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can't say, I was so upset I couldn't control myself anymore. It was the heat of the moment. That doesn't work for us. It shouldn't work for trained professionals. And to go a little bit more into that, I believe our police department, and please tell me if I'm wrong about this, one of the prerequisites to even be able to be a police officer in the city is to be able to fire a weapon through a, I believe, 6-inch hole after you've run and get your shots on target. So we expect and train our officers to be able to have a physical, to be able to fire their weapon, to have a physical altercation with their adrenaline being high. But do we ever test them to see if they're able to de-escalate with their adrenaline being high? Our rights are inviolable. Too many good people have died. Too many people have sat in prison for their entire lives. Too many people around this world are dying to have the rights that we have. And for the police or anyone else to take one of those rights away, even if it's a minor civil rights violation, it's not minor. There are more rights in this country than the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. I want to say I hope you guys do an investigation, you make it transparent. I hope that we have the ability to see how that investigation transpired. I hope that nothing's hidden behind walls. And I would just like to mention before I go, this is the perfect example to bring this up. Please, I would like to see a city ordinance where we are still able to obtain police body cam footage, police reports, and internal dialogue between the departments without having to pay, with the new law that was recently passed where we're able to be charged what I consider exorbitant amounts of money to have access to those things.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. Additional comments on any item that pertains to city business?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Herman Robinson. I'm at 1601 Oakmont Lane, Sandusky, Ohio. This is a very egregious event that we witnessed in various ways in terms of, I think I saw 2 videos. I talked to the chief, and he was very receptive. We had a good civil conversation. One of the things that I wanted to point out is the fact that the evidence in the video that I saw, there was enough blame to go around on both sides. I am very, very concerned about the training of our police officers as far as being good citizens, good citizenship themselves and this kind of thing. I think that they executed a tremendous amount of restraint. And I think that we have to teach our young men and our young women that there is a certain decorum that will probably get you a better outcome. Respect deserves respect. Some of the things that I saw in the video was particularly unsettling. I think that there were some incidences where the policemen, some of the things that they were saying in terms of using profanity is totally unacceptable, unprofessional, and I'm sure we're gonna get some training about that. But on the positive side, one of the things that I did see that I haven't seen recently in terms of police-citizen encounter was the fact that I saw on the one video these guys exercised the duty to intervene. In other words, not like the situation with George Floyd where the police sat around and let the one officer put his knee on George's neck for over 9 minutes until he died. And for that, I commended the chief and I commended the city manager. That's an upgrade. That's a better behavior than I've ever seen on the police department in terms of, I saw other policemen, at least 3 of them, try to push the other guys away and get and put a peaceful end to the situation and the circumstance. I think that we need to sometimes we need to look in the mirror and we need to be honest with our citizens. There are certain behaviors that tend to bring out the most primitive responses in an encounter. And some of the language on both sides and some of the behaviors on both sides, I just saw 2 videos. I heard there's other videos around and everything. But I would like to see this city, this hamlet become more like that beloved community that we're going to be celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. talking about it in a few days. And I think we're getting there, but we still got a ways to go, and we can't do it unless we be honest with each other. And the policemen that were wrong, I think they need to be taught and dealt with in ways whatever you guys deem to be equitable. But our community, we need to talk to our people, our young people, whether they're black or white, about what is the proper protocols and the proper way to present yourself in a non-threatening way when you are stopped by a law enforcement officer. And one of the things that really got me really concerned about this is a few days ago, my grandson had an encounter. And he told me about it. I didn't know anything about it, but he knew that some of the things that he did was probably not best in class in terms of responding to a police stop. But the policemen at that time, according to him, they executed a courageous amount of restraint. And I think that we are close enough to where we need to be to have the kind of police and community relationship that we need to have, as long as we be transparent and honest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Roberts. Thank you, Reverend. Additional comments on any item that pertains to city business?
Hi, Lisa Mazuka, 814 Bardshar Road. When the incident first happened with Mr. Scott, when the videos were released and I was able to watch, I believe it was 4 of the videos before the profile that posted them was taken down. I watched them multiple times just to make sure I had a good grasp on what I saw was happening. There was one video, the one that I was most interested in, right after Mr. Scott left the enclosed porch area after the taser was fired, which would have been the part where he would have taken the taser, which I believe based on the cartridges that were collected in the enclosed porch were all used. I did not see him run away with the gun in the driveway, and I think that was what was the reasonable cause for the amount of force that was used against him. I was really disturbed by the striking. I've been told that those were not all strikes to his head. When I saw him in the video in the police car after things were settled down where he wanted to lay down, that came across to me, and maybe it's just my judgment that he had significant head trauma. It was not from lack of being able to breathe. It seemed like he wanted to lay down because his head was messed up. And I think that's pretty excessive. And in addition to that, in that same video where he's trying to lay down, he states that he wants to die. We're talking about a man with mental health issues. And one of the officers on scene responds, "Don't make people have to pick your body up. That's disgraceful." And while I have a ton of respect for our police, and I know there's some really good officers, I've had interactions with a lot of them. I love the police. I'm not afraid to say that, but that's all the more reason why this stuff shouldn't happen. And I know that this isn't the only time this happened in Sandusky, but it did get released on video. And I think we should be more selective with our officers. Officers that can say things like that to somebody who's got mental health issues and says he wants to die shouldn't be on our police force. We can do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mazuka. Additional comments that pertain to any item of city business?
Christina Smith, 1507 Campbell Street. I just want to address that I did not watch the video. I did want to share that I had my own encounters with the police that were negative. Once in my own personal experience, once with my daughter, and once with my mother. In my own experience, I tried to run from an officer. I was thrown to the ground by my hair with unnecessary excessive force. This arrest was for a warrant, not a violent or serious crime. I also want to point out there is no law stating there is trying to get away vindicates or justifies inhumanely violence and aggression toward an arrestee. Even in a situation where there was an arrest for a violent or serious crime, the police should not be using excessive force unless the person is also physically being a direct threat, armed, dangerous, aggressive, or attacking or attempting to fight an officer. My daughter was recently stopped for speeding a block from our house. Shortly after she returned home, I heard screaming outside the door. A police officer threw my daughter to the ground with his foot on top of her, holding her down to cuff her. Me and my husband got really upset and very protective, started to demand to release her. The officer pulled a gun on my husband. He released her at once and kept justifying what he did was because she was speeding going 35 instead of 25 down Campbell Street. She did not get out of the vehicle when she was stopped. She was 16, never been pulled over. She said her rights were not read to her. She never heard an order to stay inside the vehicle. My daughter told them she was getting her parents because she's a minor and they were at home. Is this how an officer should handle a minor or any human being who is not a threat? And I thought of Scotty Scott in this situation, and I wanted to take a stand for him. no crime should result in excessive force or arrest, especially in a traffic violation, and a minor at that. If the officer's job was done correctly, he would allow her to get her parents before he used excessive force on her. If he would have handled it properly, he would have found that she was being truthful and indeed a minor. If he had a right to arrest her at that time, he would have done it with or without me and my husband there. He did not arrest her and gave her a speeding ticket. The experience of what happened to my mother goes back to January 1st, 2012. She was brought to Erie County Jail by an officer in Perkins Police Township who assumed her to be drunk. She was found dead the next morning in a jail cell with no trace of alcohol in her system. This may not be an example of brutality, but an example of carelessness and lack of investigating source of behavior. Source of behavior should never be assumed, but considered by what or what is not evident. If she was drunk, she would have had an evident alcohol smell coming from her or around her. Since there was no evidence of alcohol, she should have been given medical attention right away. This is just an example. Officers use excessive force or increase seriousness in some situations that aren't necessary to do so. Not every officer is guilty of this, but in these cases, the officers either took advantage of their authority or did not step up to protect a person, resulting in costing a life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Additional comments on any item that pertains to city business? If there are no other comments, we'll move to our next order of business. Our agenda is a presentation on the accomplishments of the Greater Sandusky Partnership. We have two of our friends that are no strangers to the building, both Eric Webster and Mackenzie Spriggs. You making Mackenzie go first, Eric, or what?
No, he's first.
Go ahead and clean up.
Hold on. Tom sent instructions.
I think we just use the clicker.
Oh, my bad.
Look at that. I actually read the instructions, Mackenzie didn't. Good evening, City Commissioners. Thanks so much for having us tonight. This is 1 year into our presentation from last year, and we've been so grateful for the support of not only the City Commission, but the incredible collaboration from the city manager and his directors and everybody involved in the organization. I will be brief, but just we wanted to give an overview of the work that took place over the last year. So the first thing was that we went through a strategic planning process to make sure that we organized the activities of the various organizations and programs that were coming together as a Greater Sandusky Partnership. Coming out of that, we've discussed ourselves as a regional chamber of commerce dedicated to improving the comprehensive economic development services to improve the quality and life and vibrancy of the Greater Sandusky Bay region. So it is actually part of the Greater Sandusky Partnership now, because there's a lot of confusion in the community. If you look at everything on the left, in addition to GSP, the Erie County Chamber of Commerce, the Erie County Economic Development Corporation, the Huron Chamber of Commerce, programs like Firelands Forward and RISE, the administration of the Erie County Port Authority, most recently North Coast Young Professionals, and then Destination Sandusky, which you'll hear about directly from Mackenzie, have all come together and make up what is now the Greater Sandusky Partnership. And we will do our work on a regional basis, but the important part, and I think particularly for this commission, represents our largest city, is that we do that starting in Sandusky and Erie County and then emanating out from there. We think one of the most important things is that if you look at how economic development has been handled by the state and regionally, Erie County and Sandusky tend to sit on the edge of a larger 18-county Cleveland region, or alternatively Ottawa County, which the census actually has combined with Erie County to be one metropolitan area for the first time after the last census. is the edge of Toledo. We think there needs to be an organization that certainly has partnered with Toledo and has partnered with Cleveland, but that wakes up every day and is thinking about the needs of this region, and with Sandusky as its largest city. And we do that as it relates to quality of life in place, skilled, supported, and engaged workforce, and a diversified economy. It really doesn't matter where you jump on that flywheel, as long as we're doing all of those pieces well. It will create a virtuous cycle of pro-growth. So Mackenzie's going to talk about the activities of Destination Sandusky, which is the predominant part of our contract with the city. And then I'll talk a little bit after that about our economic development, workforce, and advocacy and planning work. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mackenzie.
Thanks, Eric. Hello, City Commissioners, the city staff, and the audience here and at home. I'm Mackenzie Spriggs, Director of Destination Sandusky. I know that you have a long night ahead of you, so I will try to be brief. But before I begin, I just want to say that all the work we're about to present has been done in close coordination and collaboration with our city partners, and we are very grateful to have this opportunity to work together. So about half, as Eric said, of the contract with GSP goes towards Destination Sandusky. In 2024, a total investment of $219,000 went into Sandusky through direct programming, placemaking, and marketing. That's very substantial. That's $69,000 of private investment that went in addition to that City of Sandusky investment, showing how we are leveraging that and doing more together. A key part of our contract gets into programming, which is bringing this place to life on a day-to-day basis with interesting experiences and events. We produced or supported 106 special events in 2024. Just elaborating on what that means, producing means we did it ourselves or with partners. Supported means playing some sort of strategic role in ensuring that that project happened. And anything that was just promoted a couple times on social media, but we did nothing, is not in this 106 total. So to give some examples of the types of projects, we had 7 days of Sandusky Restaurant Week that was done in collaboration with Sandusky restaurateurs. We had 24 Sandusky farmers markets that took place on Saturday morning and Wednesday evenings. And then Leadership Ohio is a unique example where with partners such as the Community Foundation and Shores and Islands, we approached them to bring those 40, their class of 40 leaders throughout the state here to Sandusky, where we took them around for 3 days and showed them our destination economy. The last bullet point on this just starts to get in some of the data points that we cover. It's really important for us that we benchmark ourselves and look at what is working and how these dollars are being used. So as an example, we went really big on the eclipse. I think that we remember it really fondly. We worked with the city staff, Shores and Islands, and on April 8th, that one single day, we saw 7,700 visitors. Again, that was a really memorable day for all of us, I think. And then another data point, we work on Party at the Pier in conjunction with our city partners. This year we had over 17,000 attendees for that. That's a huge increase from years prior. And I think that we do have the weather and a great lineup also to thank for that. But getting in further to those data points, and again, this is meant to benchmark ourselves. So this looks at visits to downtown Sandusky. I want to be clear, downtown is defined as Decatur to Franklin and Washington to Sandusky Bay on this graph. And since then, I think that in the future, through a lot of conversations, we will use the DORA boundary as that goes both along the shore and also gets into the business district as our boundary. But for the purposes of this looks at visits to downtown. And I want to just bring up two interesting points that pre-2020, we actually had the State Theater online, and you see continued growth even after the COVID dip right there. Without the State Theater, I think along with the State Theater and a downtown hotel, you'll see our year-round destination continue to thrive, and for those numbers to really climb, reaching that year-round destination that we hope for. Getting into placemaking, Placemaking is really interesting. That's a planner term, but really it's meant to talk about making places more interesting. And hold on, I'm going to move to my second page here. It strengthens the sense of place and the identity people have. Again, we went really big on the eclipse. We worked with Aaron and the City Public Arts and Culture Commission to go big on projects. If you remember the supersized glasses, the Before the Next Eclipse I Want To, that had people write down their bucket list items, and those saw a great response both on social media and in person. In the fall, though, our placemaking took a different turn. We really leaned into lighting. Lighting is especially important as the sun sets at 5 p.m. and where you might have construction projects. So we did a lot of projects that involved uplighting Columbus Ave and working with the businesses there to get people to try to use foot traffic and explore what those lights were. Lighting also makes people feel safe, and so it's just one of those things that's really important. Last note, we have new banners coming. Those were funded last year, and they'll be coming in '25, and we haven't had new banners in 15 years, so that'll be a welcome sight, I'm sure. And then just lastly, getting into marketing. Our marketing is intended to drive people to want to live, work, and visit here. We hope to instill local pride. We had some really big stories last year that included Alyssa from our staff and Jason from Sandusky Rec on TV talking about the eclipse. That was to a Cleveland audience, but hit a much wider region. We also were on Idea Stream with the new Cedar Point Historical Museum, and then we had a ton of articles through our local paper and also the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Through social media, we saw a huge growth last year, gaining over 5,000 followers and reaching over 1 million people. We'll get further into that on the next slide. And then lastly, just again, why we do this. So this is really meant to talk about our businesses and support them. We did a post for Cozy's Bar and Grill over on Camp Street, just showcasing her new place. That reached 38,000 people. Toft Dairy is celebrating 125 years this year. Last year we were there talking about their plans. Just happened to take a picture and talk about their long legacy, and that reached 100,000 people. And so this really does matter to the business community when they are showcased like that online. And I think that the second part is also just talking about the lifestyle in a way of getting people to want to live here and showcasing what's so special about this place that we're lucky to call home. So we are going to show you guys a 1-minute video, and this kind of shows the example of what June is like.
Can this feeling be found somewhere else? Can it be seen on their faces at a certain time of day? Is it in a memory held like a photograph? Time with a loved one, long ago and far away. Is it carried in the laughter just up the street by those running together like the colors on the sky before it fades away? Is it there when everyone's looking up, listening in the sunlight, at the park, along the road, and on the pier? Watching time turn moments into memories and stopping to recognize that this feeling right now is enough.
And then just getting further into that, this was Destination Sandusky's inaugural year. It really came to life last year and has seen huge growth, again, due to this great partnership that we have. This is just our social media by the numbers, so you can see how it grew last year, but I think even more importantly, as we get into the future, we're going to be looking at how we use this platform to talk about how, or to further drive traffic into businesses, how we get people to choose to live here, and how we keep growing our community. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
And one thing just to clarify with Mackenzie, she mentioned the $150,000 invested by the city in the Destination Sandusky activities, and then the additional $69,000 raised. None of that 150 or that 69,000 includes any staff or overhead costs from GSP. That's literally direct money into programming and events or the marketing contract to provide those services. So for that piece of this, there's no staff or overhead. It's really just money in directly into the community. The other activities that we undertake on behalf of the contract, or the other half of the contract, is there's been a longstanding support of the city for economic development through our one of our partner organizations, ECADEC. We continue that, so we focus on business retention, expansion, and attraction, working with local businesses or potential businesses. We have entrepreneurial programs for RISE that support entrepreneurial expansion, and then we have a robust workforce development program, and actually Jarvis Caston Cole, who we brought over from Sandusky City Schools, who was the business teacher there, has helped us make a lot of inroads with Sandusky City Schools, who in the first few years of the Firelands Forward programming weren't as participatory. We've gotten them to sign up for our pitch challenge this year, and we're really working hard to make sure that as we do workforce, because we partner a lot with EHOVI, BGSU Firelands, Sandusky students tend to be a little underrepresented as it compares to other districts. You're not seeing that anymore with workforce activities because we're intentionally making sure that Sandusky students are plugged into all of those efforts. Just some stats on the economic development. In $292 million within the county. A lot of that's in the data center, but $4.7 million in direct capital investment that's been supported in partnership with your great staff, a lot of with Director Gilson, a lot of with Director Klein, helping attract state dollars for infrastructure to projects like Mac Iron and Okamoto, for example. 141 total jobs created, 31 specifically in the city of Sandusky are retained, 1.3 million in direct program incentives coming from Jobs Ohio to city programs that we helped, or city departments that we helped as a liaison, again, in partnership with your staff, and then 61 local businesses supported through RISE. In addition to that, we've added a planning and advocacy component that didn't exist in ECADEC, and that was made possible in part by the city's support. And for example, we have state advocacy, and again, much of this is right alongside your city manager and team, but we've helped to support applications that brought $3 million for the landing, $10 million for Battery Park. We just recently learned that we were the only planning grant federal dollars from the infrastructure awarded in the state to study a connection of the Sandusky Bay pathway from Sandusky to Bayview and ultimately to Port Clinton. That was led by our office. We've done an economic impact study for the downtown hotel that's helped the city staff deliberate on what type of investment that could make possible. And then ultimately, looking at regional priorities that benefit all of us, but Sandusky included, whether it's the highway connection from Columbus to Sandusky, whether it's telling the story of our destination economy and the amount of revenue that we generate on a per capita basis in Erie and Ottawa counties that far exceeds most other counties in the state. We've met with the director of Jobs Ohio, the director of Team NEO. We're making the case that investing in our region is a good return on investment for the state and making a lot of headway there. And then finally, really ramping up those workforce programs, including having applied for a $250,000 state industry sector partnership grant that's going to provide on-the-ground dollars for training, in this case in the hospitality and tourism, but we work really closely with LCCC and other partners for manufacturing and healthcare. We have 3 industry sector partnerships: hospitality, healthcare, manufacturing. And then finally, what you'll see us step into that will build on the foundation of this other work next year is that we're putting into the 2025 budget a significant program to help ramp up housing production. And we've had great conversations with Director Gilson and others from your team to figure out the role specifically that GSP staff can play in supporting local governments who will control their own local land uses. But our goal is to be a bridge between developer and available land, working with cities to create a pipeline of housing development of all types that we know we badly need in the region. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, but we greatly appreciate the city's support. While this has been a foundational year for GSP, we think that with the great work being done by the city and where we're at today, we can get even more done together in 2025.
Questions or comments, commissioners? Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next presentation will be regarding our transient rental software, and our own Stephen Rucker, our housing manager, will provide that.
Good evening. Get the opportunity to give you a brief presentation on the software we contracted with last June 11th. once I get my information up here, I'll take you through the process.
Your presentation's combined here, huh?
Yeah,
You jump right into economic development.
real quick, real quick. Hey, Tom. Tom. Have the PDFs.
Just click. The Adobe.
All right, thank you, sir.
There you go.
All right, so what you see is the permit, and I'm just going to take you through the process real quick. We received the permit, which you'll see it's about 4 pages long, just asking for pertinent information in relation to the property. Along with that, the $500 fee is required to be paid at the time. An insurance declarations page letting us know that that specific property is insured for the use of commercial rental. We have to have the sheet from the auditors showing us that the taxes are current. It's then sent upstairs to the zoning office. Once zoning comes back down, they let us know whether it's approved or not approved. Once we get that approval letter, we then schedule the inspection. Once the inspection is complete, no violations are noted, this is a permit that is issued to the property owner. If you notice, and you probably haven't seen previous permits, but this one has a permit number attached to it. That permit number allows the contractor to scrape the internet. It's just one more item for them to look to or look for when they're identifying properties that are licensed to operate in the city. So the software, it comes from a company called Decker Technologies, and the software itself is called Rentalscape. So I can zoom into a specific block. And once I get you down here. So if I get a complaint in, I can check to see if that property is listed with the software, as well as if we have a permit issued for it. So just scrolling over, it'll give me the address briefly. And as we provide the contractor with the spreadsheet, which is sent to them on a weekly basis, they'll be able to update their software showing the property either licensed or unlicensed. So if we click on a specific property, it takes me to their page. And what this shows me is where they have live listings. It's showing me their daily rate as far as the rental is concerned. A lot of this I don't get into the weeds on. I'm strictly there trying to confirm whether they're listing the property. If there's reviews, those go along with any issues. If for some reason the property is not registered, a violation notice is issued. As far as violations are concerned, there's a $500 penalty for advertising only. It doesn't have to be rented. So we're looking at a $500 penalty plus the $500 that they should be paying for the registration. So if we're looking at a live listing for this property, I don't have to go to it. It'll show you the exact page. And if you have rented a property, transient rental, it's the same page that you'll see. But as far as this is concerned, I'm utilizing this as an audit. I look at the permit that I issued for this specific property, and if you can see up here where it says occupancy advertised, if we've got a number above what was on that permit, well, now I need to reach out to that property owner and have a conversation. The software itself, the total cost was $6,825. That's an annual cost. Last year, I discovered 19 properties that were not registered with the city. That brought back another $9,500. So the software paid for itself last year. And just to let you know, the same information that I'm looking at here is the same information that the county looks at for bed tax. So they're utilizing it through a third party, a different third party than we did. So one last piece of information. There's a dashboard, and if you can see up here, the total revenue acquired through the city of Sandusky from January 1 to December 31st of last year was about $2.6 million from 186 properties. So, are there any questions?
Comments or questions, Commissioners?
Thank you, Mr. Rucker. I have one question,
Yes.
if I might.
Spargo.
How often do you go into this and do a review of properties yearly?
So right now, things are kind of slow.
Okay.
We're just now getting the registrations back from all of the invoices that we sent out. We have roughly 4,600 invoices that we send out
Okay.
for rental property on an annual basis. So I will look at these as I issue. I continue to update my spreadsheet. So it's kind of in its infancy stage as far as 2025 is concerned. I think right now I only have 25 properties, but we're waiting for the files to come down from zoning. Once we receive those, then we schedule the inspections, and then the list will continue to populate.
Okay, but obviously you have people that try to set up their rental and they try to slide on there without us recognizing that's still going on.
Absolutely. I did have a staff member that was doing this job. The individual left.
Okay.
This kind of fills that void and allows me to utilize those inspectors in a more efficient way.
All right. And then lastly, do you have any idea, and you may not keep track of this, but how many of the rental properties for transient housing are from out-of-town owners versus people who live here, own the properties? Do we know that?
That's information I could probably get for you.
Okay, just be curious to see.
I would have to go through the applications and see what the actual mailing address. We have what they call hosts. So if that individual does not reside in Ohio, they'll contract with one individual who will then manage that property for them. Let me show you down here. So you can see most active hosts, and it's just basically by their first name. And then if you go down further, you can see the most active owners.
Okay.
And how much their annual revenue was.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mr. Rucker,
Yes,
do
sir.
I understand correctly that this software allows you to be proactive? You can reach out and find those people that are renting, transiently renting, but are not permitted.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's really the key to it, isn't it? I mean, that's what we've been looking for.
Right, right. And once the complaints come in, if I have somebody call in and say, I believe my neighbor at 123 Main Street is renting a transient illegally, well, then I'm going to utilize the software and maybe a little bit of surveillance.
Sure.
Nothing after hours, Chief. All right. But, we may look for multiple cars there, different cars at different times.
Okay.
Most of the time, I won't wait for the mail to make its way to the property owner. I will send it by certified mail, but I will also post it at the front door.
And presumably, this should dramatically reduce the accusation that flies around there that there are 50, 60, 70 transient rentals that are under the radar that we're not permitting.
Let's hope so.
Okay.
Let's hope so. I still encourage people to call.
Sure.
Give me a call, and we'll see what we can do.
Additional comments or questions, Commissioner?
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Rucker.
Thank you.
Commissioner Crable, do you need a moment?
Nope.
Okay. Our next presentation will be by our Chief Planner, Aaron Blair. That's on a public hearing on a zone map amendment for 1531 and 1535 First Street. As this is a public hearing, we'll entertain questions from both the public and from Commission at the conclusion of your presentation. Ms. Blair?
Thank you, Commission President Brady. So as you mentioned, this is a public hearing. We have received an application for a zone map amendment. That's at 1531 to 1535 First Street, parcels 57-05723, 57-00193, and 57-00193.001. This is a property that's being operated as Sunrise Marina. The applicant brought this rezoning to the Planning Commission because they would like the ability to add some RV sites for their marina users, and they could not do that under the previous general manufacturing zoning. So the proposal is to rezone this property from general manufacturing to commercial recreation. That was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission, and it also brings this property in line with the commercial recreation zoning that's a lot of the neighboring properties have. So the Planning Division recommends that as well. And the similar main use, so in order for them to do the RV, they had to have a similar main use application. That's not defined in our code, so that application allows us to show how that use could be appropriate. The Planning Commission did approve that, but it was contingent on the zoning passing. So that wouldn't happen unless the City Commission approves that zoning change. So again, this is a public hearing for that use, and then it will be open for public comment and your questions at your leadership. Thank you.
Comments or questions from the public?
Yes, this is the right time, right?
You're
Okay,
not out of
all right,
order any
okay.
longer.
Tim Schwanger,
For the moment.
362 Sheffield Way, Sandusky. I had asked the city planner earlier in an email, the question I had was, okay, the way it's set up right now, if I don't own an RV, I can set my RV on that site. Do we have anything in preparation in case someone or the entire marina decides to go from my personal usage to that becoming a actual transient rental trailer? Looking into the future, do we have something in place to prevent that from happening, or can it happen and you have to go through the proper steps for me to reuse that as a transient rental? She may be able to address that here. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Ms. Blair, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you have an answer for that? If you don't, we'll find one and communicate it later. If you have one now, that's great too.
I can answer that. Excuse me. Commercial recreation is one of the zoning districts where transient rental is permitted. That would have to go through the normal approval process, and typically that requires a structure to be there to be transient rented. My understanding of the landowner is that they want to do RV sites that are seasonal, that are for their marina guests, and they don't intend to do any transient rental on this site. I would say that I know that transient rental can be a tough subject in the city. Sometimes people are worried about that land use, but the general manufacturing would allow a slaughterhouse and animal processing facilities and all kinds of very obnoxious uses. So overall, the commercial recreation district is far favorable to general manufacturing on this waterfront corridor.
Thank you. Additional comments or questions from the public or from Commission?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Murray.
I have one that relates to a prior RV park of this sort. I think in this instance, the anticipated expansion, if you will, the additional areas where we'd have these facilities, those are behind current buildings, correct?
Correct.
And I just wanted to take this opportunity to make a comment that I've shared earlier, and I know you've got a lot of things on your plate, but I think it's very important that we maintain vistas to Sandusky Bay for the public as a whole, and I would hope that we at some point find a way to get into our ordinances something that discourages building mounds and solid fences that block the public from being able to see the waterfront. So just a plug. Thank you.
In this case, they have two giant metal building mounds to hide them. Yeah. Additional comments or questions? Not, I'll declare this public hearing closed. Thank you, Ms. Blair. Commissioners, you have before you several communications from staff. I think I jumped ahead. I have to allow residents' comments on agenda items only. Any comments on agenda items only, please step to the podium and share with us your name, your address, and tell us your thoughts or your questions.
Greetings, Commissioners, one and all. Tom Lamarca, 206 48th Street. I'm going to go back to the presentation that Adair had there, because I'm not sure we got an answer on the rental. If I have my boat in Sunrise Marina and you change the zoning, and so then I'm also a charter boat captain, and so I get a lot of charters through the summer, and I'm going to now throw my camper on the site. Am I going to be able to make that a package deal? And then in a sense, and it's going to be a daily rental because I'm only taking them out for the day or two of fishing. So, what do you think?
When we get to the legislation, we'll try to find an answer for you.
All righty. And then on item budgetary information, A, with the liquor license in the Sandusky Plaza. Haven't we done that just recently? I mean, it seems like a regular movement of liquor licenses with the 1058. And I'm also wondering if this is just a procedural issue for the private club to be able to use that license. I mean, I don't know, and that's why I'm asking the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamarca. Additional comments on agenda items?
Yes, Tim Schwanger, 362 Sheffield Way, Sandusky. The first question is on item 9. That's where we're purchasing 2 lots, one on Franklin Street and the other is on East Market Street, for a total of $105,000. It looks like $35,000 is going to each property owner, with an additional $35,000 going to pay off a lien. Do we expect to be able to recoup that $35,000 from the lien, or is that something that we just forgo and not recollect on? Second question is on number 10, which is the refuse pickup and the recyclable pickup for 2025 for a total of $189,000 combined. I'm sorry, $211,000 combined for refuse and recycling. That it represents, according to the supporting documents, an increase of $22,000 over 2023, which that amount was $189,000. So maybe some justification on the $22,000 increase for 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwager. Additional comments on agenda items? If not, Commissioners, you have before you several communications from staff recommending various pieces of legislation. Can I have a motion to accept those communications?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Commissioners, we have 11 items on the consent agenda this evening. Any of you wish to move any of those items to our regular agenda? I would point out that item E is the first reading, so that legislation will come back to us again in 30 days for a second reading. Ms. Myers, will you present the consent agenda, please?
Item A, liquor license transfer for 1058 Event Center. Item B, liquor license transfer for Sunnybrook Trout Club. Item C, approval of 2025 appropriation budget. Item D, approval of software application renewal with Kronos. Item E, approval for amendment programmatic agreement with Ohio Historic Preservation Office. Item F, approval of application of zone map amendment for 1531 through 1535 First Street. Item G, approval to accept EPA Clean Water Grant for MacArthur Park Improvement Project. Item H, approval of property acquisitions and easements for East Perkins Ave project. Item I, approval of property easements for Camp and West Forest Utility Relocation Project. Item J, approval of 2025 consulting contract with George Polis for Building Department. Item K, approval of 2025 consulting contract with Robert Statler for Building Department.
Commissioners, having heard this liquor license transfers and ordinances, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Varga.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda items A through K, and declaring that all ordinances and resolutions as drafted and presented to the City Commission shall take effect in accordance with the sections reflected in accordance with Section 13 or 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Murray.
If someone could please address Mr. Lamarca's question. These liquor licenses come through for transfer. In very few instances, is there anything that we are able to do about it? We're not a rubber stamp, but we're close to it. My understanding is unless there's a serious, unless there's a zoning violation or a police or fire concern about the transfer, we don't have any standing to object. And that's what we're being asked to do, is say, do we have an objection? Do we have a basis for an objection? But could someone confirm that for my own edification?
That is correct.
Ms. Dorazak, who would have that?
Ms. Myers.
You have the answer for why that license is being transferred back and forth between the tenant and the owner of the plaza?
I don't know. I'm assuming that the Sortinos are taking back the property and not the person that was running it, or leasing the property out before.
That would seem to make sense because it is from the tenant back to the owner of the property.
Yeah, I think-
And occasionally we see it go from the owner to a tenant, so I'm guessing that's just maybe a change in tenant.
That's my.
I don't think there's anything
that's my
nefarious
belief,
going on
yeah.
there. And as Mr. Murray stated, objection to the transfer is, they're asking us if we want a hearing on this case, and obviously I don't think it matters to us. The owners of a multi-thousand square foot center is taking back a license from a tenant. I don't think we would certainly have an objection to that.
Right.
Ms. Myers, you call the roll on the motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Crable?
Aye.
Ms. Fargo?
Aye.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the liquor permit transfers and the ordinances.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Crable?
Aye.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
So that liquor permit and transfer and ordinance are passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 1, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Mark Haynes Construction of Norwalk, Ohio for the ERI Sandusky Bay Pathway Project, Heminger Ditch to Cedar Point Drive, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Murray.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance pursuant to Section 14 of the city's charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Klein, a good story here on this number, isn't there?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. This engineer's estimate for this project was $5.5 million, and we're awarding this for under $5 million, so there was at least a $500,000 savings. That money that came from the RAISE grant, anything that was saved can go back into the project that is ODOT's project that they're managing that goes from basically the city of Sandusky to Huron and all the acquisition and everything they're working on. So since that was one pot of money, anything that we can save goes back into them.
Yeah, great. Additional comments or questions, Commissioner? Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Aye.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 2.
It is requested a resolution be passed declaring the necessity for the city to proceed with the proposed East Perkins Ave resurfacing project, approving the specifications and engineer's estimate of cost thereof, and directing the city manager to advertise for and receive bids in relation thereto, and declaring that this resolution shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this resolution, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. President,
Commissioner Coons.
move for adoption of this resolution under suspension of the rules and in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the resolution.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That resolution is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 3.
It is requested a resolution be passed declaring the necessity for the city to proceed with the proposed Venice Road Relief Storm Sewer Project, approving the specifications and engineer's estimate of cost thereof, and directing the city manager to advertise for and receive bids in relation thereto, and declaring this resolution shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this resolution, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I
Waddington.
move for the adoption of this resolution under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Klein, I wonder if you'd share with, for the record, what we talked about today in our meeting regarding the benefits of this, specifically the benefits to overflows that we've experienced when we have those 100-year rains every few years.
Yes. So when the overpass was designed and constructed several years ago, the detention ponds and the storm sewer system in that area associated with that project, they were designed for 10-year rain events. Those detention ponds then bleed into an existing over-under sewer system that goes all the way up to Monroe and then to the wastewater treatment plant. Well, with the rain events that we've been getting and the flow from the farm fields to the south, it's really been inundating that system on Superior. So what we're looking at doing, we had about $3 to $4 million in the budget to look at storm systems, how to relieve that area and those types of things. One of the things that our sewer department came up with was maybe we can add a relief sewer. So basically going to the west end of that project, and they noticed that the catch basins were low enough, the bottom of those catch basins were low enough that if the water got high in those in the detention ponds, it was going to be above the bottom of those basins. So we can go and connect into that on the west end, take it all the way down to Edgewater where we have capacity in an existing large diameter sewer. Goes underneath the railroad, so we don't have to work with the railroad. It's already there, and there's plenty of capacity. So we should be able to, based on the modeling that we've done with Strand and Associates, we should be able to take at least a 50-year rain event through this system now, not flood out the Humane Society that's over there, which is what happened a couple years ago. We've worked with them as well to install some drainage system in the back. They paid for that, but we gave them an outlet into the detention pond. So we're hoping that this resolves the issue. The modeling has been very positive in that it could even take on a 100-year rain event, but I don't want to commit to that. So this is the first step, and for the engineer's estimate is $350,000. That's around 10% of what our original idea was of what it was going to take to resolve the flooding in that area. So this was a great example of our sewer department really coming through, and then our engineering department doing the design in-house and being able to save the money on the design as well. So this was a good project. Hopefully we doubt that it's going to solve everything over there, but it's going to make a huge impact over the next few years and give us time to come up with other ideas and getting rid of that over-under sewer.
Good expense of the money, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Klein. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Now on the resolution.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
The resolution is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 4, please.
It is requested a resolution be passed declaring the necessity for the city to proceed with the proposed Market and Warren Street recon project, approving the specifications and engineer's estimate of cost thereof, and directing the city manager to advertise for and receive bids in relation thereto, and declaring that this resolution shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this resolution, what is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Coons.
move for adoption of this resolution under suspension of the rules and in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the resolution.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That resolution is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 5, please.
It is requested a resolution be passed declaring the necessity for the city to proceed with the proposed 2025 Camp Street resurfacing and reconstruction project, approving the specifications and engineer's estimate of cost thereof, and directing the city manager to advertise for and receive bids in relation thereto, and declaring this resolution shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this resolution, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Fargo.
I move for the adoption of this resolution under suspension of the rules in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the resolution.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Crable? Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That resolution is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 6, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Holler Furnace and Sheet Metal Incorporated of Sandusky, Ohio for the HVAC replacement for Amtrak Station and Sandusky Transit System Maintenance Garage Project, and declaring this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Murray.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance pursuant to Section 14 of the city's charter.
Second.
A motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you poll the commission on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 7, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to expend funds to PAC Engineering LLC of Lambertville, Michigan for the purchase of equipment and services for SCADA supervisory control and data acquisition system improvements at the Cedar Point Pump Station for the Sewer Maintenance Division, and declaring this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I
Rowe.
move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Klein, for those of us that aren't familiar with the term SCADA, I wonder if you can give us just a brief description of what that is and what we're doing.
Yes, Mr. President, this is the software, it's the computer interface, it's those types of things that our water plant, our wastewater plant, our lift stations, all of them use so that they can get real-time information about the operation of the equipment and the facilities that we have. It allows them to make decisions and know exactly what's going on remotely. And it allows them to react very quickly to make sure that there aren't any other problems. So this is really kind of the software that gives us the control of all of our facilities.
Actually allows us to open and close pumps and valves from Big Island Water Works or the sewer plant.
When we have the appropriate connections and infrastructure at those locations, for example, over at the connection off Cleveland Road to the chaussee, we have those controls. We don't have it on every valve, that's extremely expensive, but those important ones that, if with the main breaks that we've had on Cedar Point Drive, if that shuts down, it shuts down everything, so we don't have as much time to respond and drive all the way out there. That's 10, 15 minutes for our crews. So the ones that are more remote, we do have that opportunity. But on the lift stations, these are invaluable on our lift stations since we have 25 to 30 of them throughout the city.
Excellent. Ms. Myers, you poll the commission on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 8, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Ed Verdue Incorporated and Company, LLC of Sandusky, Ohio, for the asbestos abatement and demolition of 937 West Washington Street, and declaring this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I
Waddington.
move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Orzak, perhaps you can answer this question. If this ordinance is passed, how soon can we look forward to that building coming down?
I believe it should, Mr. Badu acts pretty quickly, so it should be done by sometime this spring.
By spring. Thank you. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners?
I will add, there was some concern about because it's an attached wall to an existing business. The engineers, the building officials, and everybody have taken into account of that, as has Mr. Badu through this process. So that's been addressed, and they'll make sure that they take appropriate action to not affect the business next door that'll have an interior wall or an exterior wall there. So.
I am aware of the fact that we have had sawhorses in the sidewalks for about a decade there, it seems to me. So I will be, I think we'll all feel a little safer having that building on the ground.
Yeah.
Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Myers, you call the roll on the motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 9, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed repealing ordinance number 20-106, passed on July 27, 2020, authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement for the purchase of real property located at 208 Franklin Street and 410 East Market Street and identified as parcels number 56-003480 and 56-003449, and declaring this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Coons.
move for adoption under this ordinance under item 9 in full accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Gilson, there was a question regarding recapturing of fees. I believe that I know the answer to that, but it would carry a lot more weight if you provided that answer, I'm sure.
I don't know that I necessarily understood the question.
I think the question was, is it our intention to recapture the $35,000 that was listed as a lien on the property? And of course we do.
Absolutely, we do.
And that will be through the sale of presumably 2 lots to 2 people that would like to build residences.
In the future,
city.
absolutely. And based on the recent sales in the area, we are very confident we will be able to recapture those funds.
Thank you. That was my understanding also. Thank you. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Wantington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 10, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated of Cincinnati, Ohio, for refuge and recycling collection at the city property for the period of March 1st, 2025 through February 28, 2026, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Fargo.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Whirling, there's been a question regarding the cost of this. I'm going to allow you to address that. I'm not sure what the answer is.
I was a little unclear. Mr. Schwanger had asked about 2023. We did see a significant increase from the cost of refuse and recycling. They were both under the same contract in 2023. But into 2024, we saw a significant increase to where we're actually, I believe we're going to be lower on the rates from 24 to 25, but there was a significant increase from 23 to 24.
I was thrilled, personally, I was thrilled to see that decrease, and I think it's a product of being able, for the first time in a very long time, maybe the time I've been on the commission, to really get competitive bids on that.
This was the first year that we did have multiple bids, and there is a representative, Blake Austin from Rumpke, that could give some information about Rumpke if there's like a question of where Rumpke's services are coming from. We would like to have a presentation before the contract would go into effect as far as how this changes recycling for residents and some changes that they'll see, good changes, we think,
Sure.
moving forward.
Perhaps we can schedule that presentation in the future. Tonight has been and continues to be a very long night.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Worley.
Yep, thanks.
Additional comments or questions from the commission? Ms. Myers, do you call the roll on that motion, please?
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Wantington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present the next item on the agenda.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated of Cincinnati, Ohio, for recycling collection at the city's drop-off location at the service center for the period of March 1st, 2025 through February 28th, 2026, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Coons?
move for adoption of this ordinance under item 11 in full accordance with section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please?
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Wantington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Wantington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, will you present the last item on our agenda?
It is requested an ordinance be passed ratifying, accepting, and approving a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Sandusky and Ohio Charter Municipal Corporation and the Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council Incorporated, the collective bargaining unit for certain employees of the Sandusky Police Department for the period of January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard that ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Fargo?
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in accordance with section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion.
I would like,
Ms.
just,
Fargo?
I'd like to say to our city manager and everyone who helped you, and to the police as well. It was great that everyone worked really well together. You guys did a great job, and the communication was really good, and it's just nice to get this done in such a thorough way and quickly. So, great job.
Our law director played a role in that also, I might add.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Ms. Myers, will you call the roll on that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Wantington? Mr. Brady? Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. That concludes our regular agenda. We'll turn to our city manager for his report.
Good evening, Commissioners, audience, and staff. I have two donations, one for the Sandusky Police Department, one for Sandusky Fire, both for $1,000, and they're from Spear Brothers. If I can get a motion to accept those donations.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved with our thanks to Spear Brothers. Thank you.
I have quite a few donations for Park and Rec. I'd like to thank the local businesses for providing lunch for a winter break camp, Lee's Chicken Berardi's, Commons of Providence, and Pizza House East. Also, $1,000 worth of gift cards for the Kids Out of School program from the Hall of Fame Barbers. The Hall of Fame Barbers also provide free haircuts for the kids during winter break camp. Thank Sandy Kennedy for her donation of art supplies, wooden boxes, and canvases. Thank Sarah and Joey Castle for their donation of an activity table for Mills Rec. and thank Construction Equipment for lending us the use of their lift for the installation of the Christmas lights. The value was $1,500. Do I get a motion to accept all of those donations?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved, and that motion is approved with our thanks.
The city is in receipt of an economic development transfer or TREX form from Sol Venice LLC. The new permit premises address is 3124 Venice Road. The permit is coming from Fusabol Glenway Incorporated. From their application to the state, Sol Venice LLC estimates they will invest $40,000 in this project, create additional jobs at their location, and generate an additional $22,500 in sales tax. It is requested the City Commission, by motion, provide authorization to sign off on the TREX transfer form, indicating the City of Sandusky endorses and acknowledges this transfer will be for an economic development project which will benefit the community. This proposed TREX transfer will come back to the City Commission one additional time in the near future by the Division of Liquor Control for one more step when the city will indicate whether hearing is requested prior to being authorized by the state.
Need a motion for that?
Yes, sir. I think we did a roll last time.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, I would ask that you call the roll on that motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Vargo?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That motion is passed.
General reminder for property owners of vacant dwellings: if your dwelling is expected to remain vacant and unoccupied during the winter months, we highly recommend that you contact the city to turn off the water. This will help prevent your water lines from freezing and breaking, which would lead to costly repairs. Customer accounting can be reached at 419-627-5893. Curbside Christmas tree collection started today and will occur in each zone throughout this week. Residents may also drop off their trees at the Shelby Street Boat Launch Ramp, overflow parking, or the Kiwanis parking lot throughout the end of the day this Friday. Please refer to the city website at www.cityofsandusky.com or call 419-627-5829. A final reminder that bag leaves can be dropped off near the Marquette Drive entrance on the east side of the City Service Center until Friday, January 28th. For community development, the city will co-host an information session for interested parties on how to purchase a home through the Welcome Home Ohio Sandusky program. Over the course of the next 2 years, the city will be working with Welcome Home Great Lakes to develop nearly 30 single-family homes. Homes are available to buyers who earn no more than 80% of the area median income. For a family of four, that equates to an annual household income of $72,880 or less. If you'd like to learn more, please feel free to attend this session being held on Saturday, January 25th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Civista Bank branch at 100 East Water Street in downtown Sandusky. You may also find information at www.cityofsandusky.com/welcome home. And the City of Sandusky Economic Development Incentive Committee unanimously voted to support a $9,163 business development loan for the renovation project for Sandusky Packaging Corporation that they are undertaking at 2016 George Street. Sandusky Packaging Corporation is a 50-plus-year-old company that provides quality, customized packaging for customers in the food, health and medical, confections, windowing, and automotive industries. The project involves constructing a wall with electric doors and installation of an HVAC system. The HVAC system will provide much-needed temperature controls for their workforce, improving their work environment. The installation of the wall will enhance the space aesthetically for clients and customers. The total project cost is just over $130,000. We didn't bring that to commission because it wasn't over $10,000, but we wanted you aware that that grant was given and the investment that Sandusky Packaging is making in the back into the community. That concludes my report. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments for City Manager?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Murray.
Just, Chief, either you, Chief, or you, Mr. Orzak, could you remind the public of what our obligations are as property owners in terms of cleaning up sidewalks after a snow? I was concerned. We have a lot of residents who have to get around by foot, or if they're just catching the bus, they've got to walk to get to the bus. And I noticed on Perkins Ave, for example, on the Sandusky side, almost none of those sidewalks were plowed, and it was mushy yesterday, it's cold today, so, people will be slipping. And could we just remind people of what our obligations are as neighbors here in Sandusky?
Yeah, we do have an ordinance that requires that the property owners or business owners, whatever they may be, remove snow and ice, and that they're clear for the sidewalks in all of our city properties. So we encourage folks to do that as quickly as possible after a snow event.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orzak. Additional comments or questions for the city manager? Now we'll move to items of old business. Any items of old business, commissioners? Items of new business. Any items of new business, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Murray.
there is a resolution that was walked in. This was the subject of some email over the course of, I think, last week. AT&T has proposed to shift the cost of moving certain utilities in the city's right-of-way to the cities, and under Ohio law, it's their responsibility. And so the Ohio Municipal League has organized an effort to push back on that, and it's hired counsel to advocate on behalf of cities. There's been a resolution that was walked in this evening that everyone has a copy of, and I would move to adopt this resolution pursuant to Section 14 of the city's charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Byers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Wantington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the resolution.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
The resolution is passed. Additional items of new business. Any items of new business, commissioners? Now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.